Hello, my name is Anthony Wall, aka YouTuber Anthony Wall. This is breaking news. The news attached me and others to fake conversations, to changed conversations. And they attached people around themselves to fake conversations, changed conversations, planting evidences with crime scenes, excuse me, and with roles with that. I caught them still with child abusers, leaders of the kids. Also, interreligious spots. How come we never brought up how it was interreligious spots? We heard about kids getting abused and no one allowed to say anything. We also heard about people countering such where they make things up. See, I called up a principal child abuser's campus because it was brought up to me by confessions. And the people involved with the confessions have connections between themselves they don't even realize because they were being used to plant evidences on my street. Investigators, since I was a kid, since everyone was a kid, when they are not used as hyper victims, criminally foreign influence, though, as naive responses or non-responses. The difference between them and overt criminal enterprises and private ones originally and still never went away. Our founders left us to demonstrate how talk about economies and economic values was applied by the breaching method that no one had the free speech to counter. They had to hide their roles countering it, had to hide their actual motivations for the part they didn't have to hide. So we need to understand the value of why and how our founders had to counter extort the other founders. And how that is also some of the Native Americans had to counter extort the other Native Americans when they were arguing because a breaching method was watching what everyone and everyone next to everyone was saying relative to things that would force this. Otherwise, they would be forced to hurt each other and make each other more capable of being used remotely from abroad. And as the exploitation of our database relativity. Our database is tied to relativity since before computers, and with relativity replaced with the word theory, where science is a word simultaneously being used. They step past where science is science, and they have tactile delusions. The modern countries, every campus, every age and nature of campus, medical campuses and fire campuses are also campuses. See, these are manifest, these things manifest this way because we have inherited the republic for which we stand abridged. Since semi-ancient times, there are proofs that it was criminally foreign influence to make humanity's names defend themselves as countries, as individuals grouped and together as humanity voicings, now tactically as systems all tactically ulterior from the one that is also positive onto itself, except for how it shows with the difference between criminal insidiousness natures of positives and positive that is not criminal insidiousness nature. So there is a nature of positive or true. Their truths can be used for lies. Truths can be used just to keep the quality of fact should be nature criminal insidiousness, as it has stayed where and how. The question of what the laws that had black pupils and whites of eyes slander, what that was about. We had the free speech of what nature communicates prevented, and other was forced to be pretended of that person was sensed and hurt through our own law. Everywhere the species body is, too. And when those people were defending themselves, they would have to blame part of their actions on other things, others, themselves. Increasingly, their whole actions. When increasingly better than perfectly, a breaching method has and has had better than complete possession over all identities, laws, voices. Our peak identities of legal experts. Former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, has roles with a whole bunch of people on off the Facebook pages of Wethersfield Police Department families and their police department page, and on off the Facebook pages of New Britain Superior Court, with passion crimes as roles with collusions with West Hartford locations and people on off the state judicial branch offices who have roles with identity theft, fraud, slanders, instances between campuses connected relative to where and to how they could keep other communicated for what nature communicates about what those breaching method laws were about and about how they were breaching method law. The experts on logic have been blaming it on our founders and citing sources and pretending that other people don't have sources. Dishonestly, while tactically delusions raw, your identities of logic experts, they are personally and professionally criminally involved with various natures of courts, family members, their kids and their adults involved with child defenders, leaders, where and how it is being and has been employed. Identities of law can't speak for the law, but they're going to speak for it anyway. Certain type of victim / hyper victim we see with people being mean to the police in the news, the police forms, or the court speaking mean to them. That is a maintained outcome to keep the court speaking to them and first too, and to keep the difference of it. There are collusions where there are a lot of shootings in areas. There are collusions between the campuses of those areas and campus at other locations, areas, and states and in-state. Central Connecticut State University, through time, has roles with names next to the campuses in Hartford, in Wethersfield, in Rocky Hill who have connections. People with the school resource officers, people with the narratives about employment and life. We're going to examine how black and white, as applied by the breaching method, had and has other things, others ourselves blamed in the breaching method, even when correctly, that we're going to examine how that's being used to hide it, but even that's being used for a truth for lie. In other words, everyone doesn't care where and how we have the means to reveal, without a shadow of a doubt, a breaching method is involved with reception of human individual, of human nature, of every human individual's value and name, and relativity to the assignments of that value and name by the breaching method, which uses databases, which also, if it uses the roles that it forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded, only allowed. So while every day, daily, where a value progression, all these instances are going on, recollections of them, descriptions of them, and or not, and that is all being applied by the breaching method, which was involved with it, because it's making the companies, the industries hurt the people. Anthony Oliver, who has a song out about how there's not real this is my interpretation of his song. There's not real integrity of identity of the law voices speaking for the people of the industries like coal miners. Speak about Anthony Oliver. My name is Mike Anthony Wall, and there's a Mike Oliver, or Mike Oliver, Machine Gun Mike Oliver. And we were boxing at a Bellevue Square boxing gym before it closed. And there's a Johnny Duke, a dinosaur of boxing, who was associated with that gym in the location, where there were a lot of reported murders there, shootings there through time. And this is relative to where and to how George Washington had the counter store at the last of 13 spots to win the last battle of the Revolutionary War. And Wethersfield / Hartford, which is now Wethersfield / Hartford. And where Trinity College is Trinity College, it used to first be George Washington College. And on and off that campus are names that had roles with the World Trade Center attack, who were criminally foreign influence, had roles with predicate acts when they were kids. But it's also weird how they were attaching other people that went to schools with them to fake locations with them, fake ties to them, fake natures of ties to them. And then some of them, they make exceptions. They act and someone takes a picture to make it look other. This is also relative to where and to how they could get the motivations to pretend they could speak about truth or lie. There's a James Comey, who's one of the people reportedly as an FBI director. There's also a former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, a former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organization Act, and his lawyer, Robert Cheverry, and their co-defendants, Thaddeus Kabowski. For example, he's one of the ones off Fox Connecticut News. Fox Connecticut News has roles with the intelligence community, with the buildings next to them, involved with them with wire crime acts and methods with their phones, distinctly from their roles with news broadcasts, fake, planting evidences, sickly distinctly from the other news locations. At the same time, though, with the interbranch switching and forging names with names on all sides of criminal and civil cases, victims, and their advocates, at the same time as names involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, has something to do with their roles. One of the things that connects them is their uses of spots next to the campuses, like even medical campuses. Hartford Hospital has a Iowa family involved with mayors, involved with child abusers, leaders of kids, and people involved with intelligence community with guns and weapons, who have roles with various natures of organized crime, child abuses, elderly. These same families have roles with positions at elderly homes. And now these are courts and people on off the state judicial branch offices that go get paid for their jobs to result. In other words, and with the Veteran Affairs building, see how it's designed like that. Torture method only allowed cities to be built as. It only allowed the suburbs to be designed tactically denatured before our founders were born to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, while being a landscape theater where they could juxtapose means to cause criminal positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures as criminal roles with criminal insidiousness natures of means to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures that were in collusion with the overt negatives and with where and how it applied, and effectively still needs everyone to blame other things, others, ourselves for what it caused and keeps the breaching method. So we have experts on history that have other told already, and they've defended that, and they're pretending, implying their motivations, even when they are real, their motivations, they are juxtaposed with other motivations and delusions at the same time. So we need to have mandated law followed properly, but so they need to have all words like mandated law and phrases like mandated law. They need to have it like playing stupid, where they don't remember, they don't realize originally and still our founders left us to communicate where the difference between the corruption of the interbranch used remotely, or the overt criminal enterprises, or the private ones, or the insidiousness of people A through Z as they were manifested tactically as the breaching method only allowed. Otherwise, those bodies individually grouped together, every species body is, they would sense our own through our own. As our own, as the species body, forbid that hypernative system. It teaches us differently about the difference. It teaches us to value the difference between criminal insidiousness natures of positive or negative, because it shows us how to make a more how to make better factual nature positives with convictions, better convictions that by what is true always, not denying the slightest sequence ship, not denying the slightest detail left out. Like, for example, how we are systems tactical terror. Who wants to debate that has to self-value how they left out how criminally foreign influence uses of databases were involved with the logic of and with the natures involved with all the tragedy and involved with all the conflicts. They left out the breaching methods roles with it. See, president/chief, Native Americans, with all natural differences, new nature would demonstrate they're being applied as systems, and two systems other than the one that causes positive, that is real positive. It's evolutions, fruits, gifts, means out of newer, including where and how we are factory in nature. See, this doesn't go into agreements um, pretending about unity or independence, leaving it how they both have a simultaneous function because it's to show us the hyper simultaneous. And if we're not appreciating what is that's why hot and cold are valued simultaneously, not just with warm. There's again too. There's a difference between positive that's criminal insidiousness nature or not, and what is can't afford to discern short words proper, let alone their protraction. So the Constitution is abridged, and the identities law to keep them a certain type of victim slash hyper victim and pretending other. In other words, because that's all anyone ever heard is for definitions of integrity for the interbranch. They're pretending it before they're faking it to make it, as the breaching method uses them remotely from the peak identities of sophistication to people drafting, as the people drafting and maintaining defenses of groupings of as criminal enterprises, for example, in relativity with readings of federal statutes, international statutes. People say war crimes. This has to do with someone's definition that left out the breaching method that came from some ancient times. In fact, it has its self-value because there's still criminally foreign influence uses of databases, uses of that tactically denatured identity grounds, identity of relationship to itself. That causes extinction, causes dirtier and dirtier water. We have people that want to have fights about if times are getting better or not, and they want to use statistics, leaving out all the ways that the statistical locations are recorded used criminally foreign influence from off them, but increasingly as on off those locations collusions. No, everywhere there's the names of the sciences are manifest, they are manifest abridged. So we have to use short words properly. Connecticut Interbranch has been switching names and forging names. Make sure that Judge Napolitan understands. I repeated that simple sentence many times. And what I said is not clear, too. That's part of the hyper evidential. There, we could discern the hyper evidential. For example, there is that identity of simultaneous nature that is not humanity. It is not the other species bodies, but we are that its identity anyway. For example, it has them with two eyes, has us with two eyes, has them with the same quality aspects in nature, distinctly, but not distinctly too, and simultaneously, but further hyper simultaneously too. There is an identity of hyper relativity. It is the one as why. It is the one that is the verb and is the subject distinctly, non-distinctly, simultaneously, and further hyper simultaneously. So we could discern the only increasing value of their identity of relationship to themselves, and the value of that only increasing as we how we discern what's going on when we're discerning and making our speech and the speech of others, which is reality. But see, reality is still abridged. They have descriptions of reality that are also being and haven't been used remotely, criminally foreign influence, consciously. Now it shows the only people that could decide these issues where the bodies hurt each other relative to this as collusions, and with the difference between their roles with it and the other. So a certain type of victim that the breaching method knew wouldn't be able to speak for the suburbs, let alone would it allow it only to unfold as cities across the world. In Russia and in America, look at the suburbs. They have that same stupid design since before our founders that was involved with the torture and extortion of them. We have not dealt with the torture and extortion of George Washington, honestly, which would have brought up the fact treatment nature slavery against every founder. The ones Native Americans, they had to counter extort the other founders. They were still they were still enslaved. Factory manager enslaved by a breaching method that was measuring, maintaining whose collusions or not, and or not with the exceptions still. They'll have people hurt where they employ people to hurt each other. And then they employed their intelligence bodies together. Then they employed those countries to hurt each other with the names. Through the locations, every state's already criminally foreign influence, only remembered criminally foreign influence. So they're going to force leaders to entertain the need. Criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments, not just negative treatments, syntactically, as names treatments, therefore identity treatments, therefore names treatment, time treatments, value treatments. We have the identity of the grounds, identity of relationship to itself that was set up in the suburbs, while the torture of and the extortion of our founders were locked in place deep. The method by it. Again, when we deal with this honestly, we're not leaving out the fact human nature slavery against them sickly distinctly, because that's part of understanding the method. Because by having everyone sustained, hurting each other sickly distinctly, it measured and maintained everyone's leaving out how sickly non-distinctly. If they had followed that, they would have followed the forensic trail right back to the breaching method's use of all locations, including countries grouped, all groupings, therefore all names like UN. The UN has roles with people tied to a Bob Chase who are involved with, including female judges, with child offenders of various natures, including medical and sexual. It's where and how they're used as names at their locations with time treatment, substance treatments. And they've been using phenomenon in the background where they make people yell or keep quiet, and they exploit that because their roles with identity theft, fraud, slander, interbranch, putting fake transcripts in the databases when at the same time with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, names on all sides of criminal and of civil cases. The Britain Superior Court and Hartford courts are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They're leaking how they have roles with West Hartford locations with people from Wethersfield intelligence community, foreign and domestic military before the World Trade Center attack. Also with the news media. The news media is communicating with the intelligence community on off Central Connecticut State University. Also, the FBI and the Wethersfield police have roles of wire crime acts and methods. Also, where and how they attach little kids and their families to fake conversations with themselves. They attach me to fake conversations with myself, also with other police departments and campuses. Wethersfield police, they've attached me to fake conversations with them, fake ties to them when I was a kid, and now as an adult. And a whole bunch of people tied to police forums with the name Mendez and former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and Whiting Forensics involved with state police families, interstates, with the ones involved with the name Cololo, with Wethersfield police and wire crimes. Also, named O'Brien involved with them. Uses of corners of buildings and of streets. As time collusion with identity theft, fraud, falsified police report roles with judges speaking fake things in databases. New Britain Superior Court has the hallways of their courts, and they have the sheriffs involved. There's also a Joshua Schumacher and his mother, a whole bunch of people with the Facebook page of Wethersfield Police involved with child offenders, with sheriffs and things like that through time. All kinds of criminal and civil cases, victims and victims advocates, including people with Sandy Hook and Sandy Hook Promise. And on Twitter, still with more upskirt natures, pictures, roles with the FBI, and people with the name Ian. And neighbors of theirs involved planting evidences on all sides of my houses with a whole bunch of people tied to the name Dylan and the police forums and Central Connecticut State University involved with it, as the names involved with William to the World Trade Center. And they make instances out of sequence, doing anything to pretending the conversations about that. I did not know who the Gill family was. They sought me out to confess this, and I had one time from other side, and I had nothing to do with them when I was they have prosecutors and judges involved with them, with the intelligence community from Wethersfield, who were planting evidences on my street and as roles with their wire crime acts and methods tied to it. And then they go around like a whole bunch of people who had conversations with Timothy O'Brien, who walked around Weathersfield through time. He has roles with some teachers in the intelligence community and people with Sandy Hook who are further involved with the principal child offender, and more religious spots are involved with it. And the judges have roles speaking to fake things in databases, and with the prosecutors and judges, with their family members involved with the same house involved with it. Also, all kinds of foreign and domestic medical corruption and military involved with that. So, fear God, hide and plot. I rap a lot. Don't let them block me off, please. They're lying to you. The former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, YouTube, or his lawyer, Robert Chevry, just two that James Comey. He used the word, the phrase, right to lie. His sources, even and he's supposed to be the FBI director. He's involved with the Congress, with congressional families used remotely through time too on off the campuses like Central Connecticut State University, Trinity College. And they're lying about their motivations. They were planting evidences there with the same ones involved with identity theft, fraud, slander against me. I don't even know at all, like a Joshua Julian and a Joshua Stryker who used a corner to make someone take a picture and pretend I knew him. In other words, and one time, in other words, they have something to do. One time at Eric Oliveri's house, he's involved with the intelligence community on off the state judicial branch offices and spots around it, and like next to bridges and stuff like that, where they're relative to their roles also with unions planting evidences and their family members, identity theft, fraud, slanders, roles with news locations planting evidence, predicate acts with their news stories, and they have wire crime acts with their phones, pretending not to understand people after they attach us to fake conversations with themselves, fake locations with themselves. And when I caught them doing this with child offenders, leaders of the kids, they have medical families with badges too involved. So follow name for them. They have family members of some of the kids, leaders too. Still, that's how it's part of it. And the difference between they have like West Hartford campuses have more with the names next to them. And one of the things the interbranch men have in common, they lied to the girl. As strangers, they approached me saying they were going to tell a lie. That's how they pretend to know me. Alex Epstein said demonstration of the same thing. So Eric Burgess has roles with Amy or Emily, who's one of the ones involved with former director of the FBI and his co-defendants, with former director of the with judges and prosecutors involved, planting evidences intercity with them, and roles with child abuses and other natures of organized crime, bank robberies, and with foreign and domestic military leading up to in the World Trade Center attack and since. They have an Officer Hunter. They said it was an Officer Hunter. They're not clear with the names. Who was one of the ones near the involved with all kinds of conjunctions to the state capitol, including with this. There's a lawyer, Robert Chevry, on Asylum Street there, I believe it's Asylum Street. But with that area, people involved with that area through time, we also with that Officer Hunter on off Central Connecticut State University was demonstrated to me. Roles of people involved with identity theft, fraud, slander, planting evidences, people involved with Gail King, and family members of hers. There are proofs that they might have written some. There was a van that walked up and they had the door open and there were people in there smoking. That might have been relatives of hers because they're needing to hide lie progression because they were used. They have something to do with the Weathersfield Police Department and their roles of military, foreign and domestic, whole bunch of different countries, has something to do with their roles with uses of corners of streets and corners of buildings and fake where they're going to time where people walk and they're going to have someone say something and then walk away, like things like that. You don't even know who the person is. That's relative to where and how it's recorded that they are being used remotely, criminally foreign influenced our investigators. Also, where and how the World Trade Center has roles with that. The World Trade Center also has roles with psychiatry, tactically delusions raw. This is also where and how they have roles of wire crime acts and methods. So still at those locations where we're supposed to have real health, they have people creating fake health conditions, planting evidences as roles as collusions with crime scenes into their databases so long that their whole families are involved with it at the same time. So please follow mandated law and get them onto paper now. Let's go. Fake branches. Bow, fall. Right there is C. Here, wall, lift, wall, build. You know why the topic in the news is with the wall? See how these big countries that can transverse the earth, these groupings of humanity, they have nuclear weapons. They want to keep saying that war is right. But, or what's their alternative is criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, raw. They cannot defend their logic. The identities law, A, excuse me, a country A through Z. But it's differentially them, it's differentially increasingly them or the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, or the insidiousness of people A through Z. Forgiveness is because if we just stay focused on acts and what came first, and people's excuses. Obviously, when there's a breaching method involved, people A through Z are going to have excuses. We're going to follow mandated law. We're going to have to force them to follow mandated law. So these people want to just keep speaking as talking heads, and there's a quality of fact treatment nature that is prevented at courts because they have the courts as collusions. How they're getting away with it is how they've been hiding behind every nature of title and every positive thing is used as a criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatment where syntactical convictions are made and theories. So follow mandated law for your branch of government. Follow fix the fake news. The news predicate acts. WFS role B has World Trade Center predicate acts since, which is one of the reasons I know that they had roles with predicate acts leading up to the World Trade Center with the names in it too. And I don't know the Keene family. And the way I know them, it was nothing like they pretended, which is also demonstrated by the investigators who are preventing me at calm means to report things. And also by I'm not going to speak with them any other way except for on video here, because they have wire crime acts and methods where they fabricate. They had fake conversations with me at the Wethersfield Police Department. They pretended to know me as a kid. They plant evidences there. Other kid, Chris Walters, only time I know him, he's making confessions. He even gave me an affidavit as a kid. He was being influenced with from other parts of town with the ones on my street. Further then and now, as ones I caught involved with the principal child abuser, and medical families with the judges and prosecutors involved. There's a Brian Silver and our judges involved with the name Johnny Duke. And names next to where he lives on Zion Street in Hartford, next to Trinity College, who was involved with an Iowa family / IES, who planted evidences and fake ties to me, fake motivations, and lied about how I got there, to pretend to know me after I had graduated. After my class had graduated. The only reason I stayed back too are people involved with drugs and medicines crimes with those two speech class teachers I had. I never had a personal conversation with either one of them. There are also recorded ties to the names that are involved with the principal child abuser, timed uses of them, and rolls on predicate acts on my street with Wethersfield Police, switching names with other police forms. Let's get them the heck on paper and one name in sequence. And fear God, don't lie about your motivations or what came first. And let's get them onto paper, one name in sequence, because they have Rocky Hill schools further involved with men and women with the intelligence community, also the medical community, foreign and domestic. Sick with the kids. Get out of the schools. And get this Leahy family. This Leahy family pretended conversations with me through the mail about legal cases. I never had a conversation with them in my life, let alone about a legal case. I never had a conversation about people surveilling my father with police equipment. He put all this fake stuff with various natures of federal criminals since before they were caught, and with co-defendants, a former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, involved at medical campuses with child offenders, sexual, medical, at the same time collusions with murders involvements with the murder of Greg Kyler. If they made up any of these murders or things, they're involved with it anyway, same ones, different ways. With that girl who was dragged to her death, Alea Aldrich or something like that, tied to a Mark Violet and a Mike Violet, and their roles with the locations where she was dragged to her death too, from Hartford to Wethersfield on Jordan Lane, and then all places off of that Ridge Road there, which we're you know, and that's where there's a Mazzucato family is also one of the ones involved with my Mayano family. Recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with, you know, also school resource officers with various natures of organized crime with the kids, and not legitimately with training police forms. Central Connecticut State University has roles with through time, increasingly with people involved with organized crime groups and body dumping spots, and timed roles with the names next to it. You're involved with it, like a Fianza family confirmed on Facebook, where they strangers made a whole bunch of confessions to me about their roles with the body dumping spot of Billy Grasso, and with a Dillon family. And now Detective Dillon and people, other a guy who said he was his um his partner to my one of my speech classes, and involved, and also with the corner of and with home break-ins in the area through time, with people involved with them with that, with like Denmoro and Hanson. Also, as people with Central Connecticut State University and through time involved with state police families, interstates, and medical families, foreign and domestic, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, making fake instances of knowing people, leaving out, you know, planting evidence, wire crimes with the families that work at the phone company. In other words, and with Wethersfield Police, switching names and forging names, also with foreign and domestic military families and general. There was a Kuwaiti general involved with one of the intimate ties of a dean, a Dean Keys with Tunxus Community College, and she also has a black Muslim guy. Black I'm using because they have black, white, female judges involved with KKK themed, black themed, um, military police, people with the Eastern States Narcotic Drugs Task Force involved with drugs and medicines crimes with Hartford Hospital, and with intercampuses in other hospitals, New Britain Hospital. They have something to do with unmarked police forms and training of them. And roles like with the Gill family has roles with the intelligence community. The intelligence community has roles on Covington Street through time, planting evidences intercities on off campuses, because the intelligence community is just using that. No, they're speaking for the law. They can't speak for the law. Follow men to the law for your people. Now, these are further names. I don't know Kevin Knesselis. They made a fake exception of knowing me. And his sister, I don't even know his sister's name. People at Central Connecticut State University with the intelligence community have people on her street involved with this too. I don't know, in other words, people on Highcrest Street involved with the principal child abuser with investigators has something to do with the roles along Route 3 in Glaston and Cromwell. There's a club in Cromwell, like a bar or something like that. Changed the names of it, but it's involved with the intelligence community, with names like Demar, with names like C.M. Faglione, with a Brian Silver is one of the people involved with prosecutors and judges, and a Leahy family also with prosecutors and judges speaking fake things in records as roles with child offenders, including sexual and medical, and while they're tactically delusions raw. And with the news at the same time to prevent people from voices, they've been stacking fake things in their databases every day. Many pray. So they have remote uses of Fox News